And we are live. Welcome to another episode of Unscripted. And I have the great pleasure to introduce Ross Haleliuk. Thanks very much for joining me today. Much appreciated. How are you?
I am fantastic. Thanks, David. Super happy to be here.
I'm telling you, this is meant to be. We've been trying to get this up and running for a little while there. Life catches up to you, and we all have other things that we going on. And I'm very happy that we finally got to connect and do this because I think you bring tremendous value to the cybersecurity community. And you are an entrepreneur, you're a creator, you're an author. There's a bunch of things we need to cover, but just to clean our palates and get into the groove of things, maybe walk me through memory lane in terms of how you got to where you are today and what you're doing today.
Super happy to. Yes, so I'm an operator. I like to think about myself as somebody who enjoys building products, communities, companies, relationships, and in general, looking for ways to build something new, to create something new. Career-wise, I'm a product guy. I have been in product management for quite some time. I did not start in cybersecurity, however. I started in e-commerce, then I was in retail, wholesale, financial technology for a number of years. And then life happened, and then I ended up in cybersecurity, fell in love with the industry, and frankly, I don't see myself anytime soon leaving the space. It's a fantastic place, so mission driven, so full of people who are truly passionate about what they're doing, and truly it is a way to make a difference and to do something that's bigger than you.
Absolutely. And you can glance over very quickly. So if you don't mind, let me first and foremost, so how do you actually fell into it? Walk me through that fork in the road you took to
Yeah.
land into the cybersecurity realm.
Yes. I got a job offer from a friend, which I declined. So that is a very short version of the story, a bit of a longer version of the story. A good friend, I became interested in the cybersecurity space several years ago, probably 5, 6, 7 years ago. Who remembers? And then a good friend reached out to me coincidentally saying, hey, we are looking for somebody to lead product. Would you join? And initially I was like, wow, like this is amazing. The company makes sense, the market makes sense. I had a great conversation with the founder, and I was so excited. I was so hyped up. I went home and I started reading more about the industry. And frankly, after probably 3 or 4 hours of just digging deeper into how different markets interact and how the industry fundamentally functions, I ended up giving him a call saying, hey, I am not going to do this. This is crazy. And the reason I said no at the time was because coming from financial technology and just coming from the B2B more broadly into cybersecurity, what I first saw were not different problem areas that have to be addressed, were not different opportunities on the market, but instead it was MDR, NDR, XDR, SIM, source, CSPM, DSPM, DLP, and all the other abbreviations. And after reading that for several hours, I just said, this is an insane market and I can't picture myself doing this. But here I am. I ended up going back on my decision, and several years later, I still believe that was the best career decision by far.
And it's so interesting because a lot of people are in your shoes. A lot of people are they want to get into this space and yet they're overwhelmed. And I've seen a lot of forums where people ask, oh, what's the first step? And to get into it, and really just first step is to take the
Yeah.
first step. And despite the fear of jumping in and learning, you do have, if somebody has the aptitude to learn, you do have the capacity to catch up on it. And so how long did it take you to really immerse yourself and become proficient?
So it depends. I think for many people in the industry and also for many people more broadly, 1 year, like 10 years of experience is 1 year repeated 10 times. And so people do the same thing in different places. Like for me, what I try to do is to get as deep as possible, as quickly as possible. So meet as many people as I can, go to as many events as I can, ask as many dumb questions very quickly as I can, read as much as I can. And it's probably taken about a year, I want to say, of going super deep and trying to understand fundamentally, like how does security function? What are the different entities that come into play? What are the different trends that shape the industry? And to be fair, I have spent a decade in the technology space, so security wasn't like fundamentally new. It was just a different market. I did the same, for example, when many years ago I ended up in the mortgage technology space. Over the first 3 months after joining a mortgage tech company, I became a licensed mortgage broker to understand that space better. So for me, it was natural to go deep and to dedicate time to build that foundational understanding. The part that I think was harder in security is just how little there was about the business side of the space. What I found initially was that it's fairly easy to get an understanding of the technical side because there are just so many great newsletters, so many great conferences, so many great panel events, so many great webinars. But what was much harder is to build the understanding of how the business side of the industry functions.
Yeah, what's interesting, the piece is that you were getting out of your comfort zone without the fear of being ridiculed or asking, as you mentioned, asking dumb questions, or be able to show that you're not exactly proficient. So you fake it until you make it in a lot of ways. And then you are also actively, and the word active is something that I like to emphasize, seeking that knowledge. And the knowledge is available. As you mentioned, there's so many different ways you can absorb that, maybe through osmosis, through shadowing, through meeting people, to hands-on conversations, whatever the case may be. But the idea here is that you have to actively seek that and put yourself in a position to absorb that knowledge. So you can't be passive about it.
Yeah, probably. I think the way I often see it is much simpler. I like to tell myself that like you really have to just make one decision after which you have no choice but to do all the things you've described. Like when you're still in the process of decision making, like it is scary, like stepping into something new, whether it is a new professional area, a new domain, a new type of company, or a different size of a company. Like it is always going to be scary. But once you make that decision, you realize that what's the worst that can happen? Like, right? You're now here and you have no choice but to get up to speed, but to start adding value quickly. And you just have to do what's expected of you to make it happen. So it's similar to, for example, when on the day-to-day, let's just say you decided to eat healthier. So there are two fundamentally ways of doing it. You can go like once a week or two, or once every 2 weeks, however often you do grocery shopping. You can just buy healthy foods, and then all you have at home is healthy stuff. Or you can buy a bunch of crap and then every single day force yourself to make the right decision. So I prefer to make that decision once and then deal with the consequences of it. And in a similar way here, when you join the industry, when you throw yourself into the circumstances where you have no choice but to learn and to absorb, you're removing all the complexity, because on the day-to-day, you just have no other choice. You wake up in the morning and you get right into it.
Ross, you're like the modern day Cortez, burning the ship down, so there's no way for the men to come back. We're just doing it in the tech world. Let me ask you another question relates to this, and I appreciate you unraveling this. Specifically around the fact that you came from a tech background, albeit not necessarily security, but there is value to that. The fact that you were working in a different tech industries and have that knowledge, and now you have the cybersecurity expertise, that domain and the intersection between the two is actually very valuable. And this is something we need more in the industry. I believe that people that come from different backgrounds into cyber and carry knowledge and expertise in other areas and are able to intersect that is something that's super valuable. Is that something you agree with me?
It is a bit of a leading question, and given my background, there is no way I can say no. I do agree. And in fact, I am a big believer that you cannot innovate in the industry unless you bring people who have a different idea, different opinion, different cultural context, different professional context, different expertise. And it is very hard. Like, for example, if you're talking about product management, it's very hard to build products differently if all the people who are in that product management role in different companies have come from other cybersecurity companies, have spent 10, 20, 40 years in cybersecurity. It's not bad. The value of expertise in the industry is incredibly important, and it is high, it is critical. That said, the longer you spend like boiling in this homogeneous pot with people who are just like you, who are like trying the same approaches that you are trying, the harder it becomes for you to get to step outside of your comfort zone and get out of the box. Like, it's not, and it's not just product. In the same way, for example, in marketing, I'm a big believer that one of the reasons why marketing, why we are suffering in terms of the way go-to-market looks like in the industry, is because we have the same people just playing this game of musical chairs, going from one company to another and doing the exact same thing that they've done in 5 companies prior to it. So we need innovation, we need new perspectives. And for that, we need people who don't have that understanding of the industry, who haven't spent 20 years in it, but who have the willingness to learn. If you combine that young energy with different perspectives, with people and perspectives from somebody who has indeed accumulated that domain knowledge, that's when you build something incredibly powerful.
Yeah. So hire for the job they want, not the job they had.
100%.
But I'll tell you, from not necessarily personal experience, I've been fortunate enough, but there's a lot of people that just don't get hired because they don't have that specific role in the specific company. And right now, even though you have recruiters, you have industry that's looking at resumes and looking at backgrounds, rarely I see people moving to completely different industry or different roles. It's, if you look at people's resumes and backgrounds, you see they're moving from one job to another. It's almost in horizontal, and typically also like in a competitor, for example, they move from one company to another, doing, as you mentioned, exact same thing. I think due to the fact that the companies don't want to make the investment in training you, they feel comfortable, I guess safe. It's a safe bet. Maybe it's not the best bet, but it's a safe bet. And then sometimes the fact that you work in a competitor just because you kind of bring in some of that tacit knowledge of things that was under the hood. Even though we both agree on what you just discussed, in actuality, your story of being offered a position that you never did before is fairly rare in the industry.
I think the answer to that is definitely a yes and a no. Yes, it is much common to get hired for the job that you've done before. And frankly, let's pretend we are not discussing cybersecurity. Let's say we are talking about, I don't know, biotech or marketing tooling or anything else. It's always going to be the case. It is simply always going to be the case that if you have experience in a certain domain, it's going to be much easier for you to get hired in that domain. It also will make much more financial sense because you can command a higher compensation package. It probably takes you less amount of time to land that new role, especially if you're truly good at what you're doing, if you build the network, if you build that credibility in this. I think it is harder in areas such as security, where the industry is incredibly risk averse, which is fascinating to me because we are talking about managing risks on the day-to-day. We are talking about the fact that there are types of risks that you have to accept. There are different ways and strategies for managing risk. And yet, when it comes to hiring decisions, we are looking for the least risky option possible. The thing is, though, that product management as a discipline, as a professional area, is an exact same spot. And the reason, in my perspective, is because both of those functional areas, product and security, are incredibly high impact and are incredibly hard to evaluate on the day-to-day. And you're only seeing the outcomes of that work potentially a year or 2 or 5 years later. You're not seeing it just in time. For example, if you're talking about being a salesperson, you join a company, you get a quota, and you're being evaluated every single quarter. You know if you're doing well, you know if you're not doing well, you know if you're struggling in this industry. In product, you can get hired. In product, you can make decisions that shift the company's strategy, that change what the company is going after and who the company is going after, that change the shape of the products it offers, and so on and so forth. And in the short term, it may look like you're making great decisions and the company is gaining some traction, but then in the long term, over the course of 2 years, the company falls because of the decisions that you've advocated for. Security is a similar discipline. You could be doing something that looks great up until the breach happens, and then when the incident response team is starting to unravel the reasons why it happened, it finds the most obvious and the dumbest mistakes possible. And so in both of those examples, you are trying to reduce as much risk as possible. And for that, you're looking for shortcuts. You're looking for signals that will tell you that, hey, this is the safest, the least risky hire. And there are different types of signals. Having a degree in the industry is one of the signals. Having the right certifications, having the right papers behind your back is another signal. Having the people in the industry with the right reputation vouching for you is another signal. But obviously, the strongest one is that you've done this before.
And there's no, as you mentioned, right or wrong answer here. We're discussing the same thing. But it's funny because we are asking for people that are managing risk to take risks in hiring.
Yes.
Which is almost a bit of an oxymoron.
Yeah.
So the reason I ask you to join, among other things, is because you're an author of a book, Cyber for Builders. What inspired you to take the plunge and write something? And I have to tell you, who doesn't want to write a book? Everybody wants to write a book. In fact, I've had write a book on my to-do list for the past 15 years. It's like after do my taxes and buy some groceries, and I have write a book, but I never got around to it. So walk me through the process of the inception of the idea of writing a book. How do you go about it? And then we can dive into what the book's about.
Yes. So I did not start wanting to write a book. That was absolutely not the intent. Instead, as I've mentioned, when I ended up in security, I quickly realized that there is very little information about the business side of the industry. Everybody is talking about how to secure an organization, how to design the right technical defensive measures, how to build career, how to grow into senior roles, how to develop your soft skills, and so on and so forth. But what there was very little of is content about building companies, building products, building something that somebody else is going to ultimately purchase and start using. So for me, because I wasn't able to find enough of that in the market, what I started doing over the past several years is writing a blog. So I have a fairly active blog. It's called Venture in Security. I started it probably about 2.5 years ago with very little agenda. On one day, I had a perspective to share about something to do with go-to-market strategies in the industry, and I created a Medium account. I published it online, and then tons of people responded saying, hey, this is great, this is super useful. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. I guess I have more of that. So I published a second piece. And then I also got a very positive response. After some time, I moved from Medium to Substack because it gave me much more control about how I write and what kind of audience do I expose myself to. And after a year or so, I got probably close to 5,000 or 6,000 of email subscribers, which to me at the time, it was absolutely mind-blowing because in cybersecurity, where everybody is using ad blockers, where nobody wants to input their email into any of the forms out there, like everybody is being very protective of their private data. If you've convinced 5, 6, 7,000 people to share their contact details with you, you're probably doing something right. There's probably somebody reading wherever you're putting out there. I grew a fairly active blog. At a certain point, it reached 10 or 11,000 email subscribers, and I came to realize that I already have at least 25% of the book. When I started writing a book, I didn't start from scratch. Instead, I had a foundation. I had 10, 20, 30% of work that was already done. And what I needed to do is to just continue building on top of that. You may say I've cheated, but also I was looking for a way to discipline myself. So I would force myself to write like every single weekend, like Saturday, Sunday, like 4, 5, 6 hours per day. And that's frankly what I do with my blog. So it wasn't too hard to do. The hardest part initially when I was thinking about writing a book was that I thought I will not have enough ideas, enough perspectives, but at the end, I had to really try hard to be as concise as possible, because if I didn't, this book would have been probably 3 times longer than what it ended up being. As prioritization is always the hardest part. It's not producing content.
And Ross, what do you think that they? So first of all, that's amazing. That's an amazing story, and I love that because it organically developed, which is the best way to do it. And by the way, it's the best way to do it as well for founders. They typically come out with a need through day-to-day operations or somewhere that they come across, and they saw there's no answer to it, so they went out and creates it. They go ahead and create it. What do you think that the initial value was to these folks that sign up for the newsletter?
I think it was truly the gap around the insights focused on the business side of security, focused on the go-to-market, focused on fundraising, focused on marketing, sales, product, building a security company, maybe dissecting different trends that are seen in the industry. There is a lot of good content out there. The challenge is that most of it is produced with an intent to sell. It's produced with an intent to market. It's produced with an intent to get some product out there. And when you're writing a deep dive about a certain market category, and your goal is to say that, hey, buy our product, like we are the best here, the kind of content you will end up producing is going to be very different. Or if you end up writing, for example, the way analyst firms do, about specific market segments, about specific categories, you're already pigeonholing yourself in a certain direction, and you are trying to get a specific point across. But the question I was asking myself is, what happens if you are writing a blog over the weekend, and if you don't have a certain, like a specific agenda you're trying to get out there? What if you are genuinely just trying to understand the problem? What if you're trying to get to the bottom of a complex area of the business or an interesting trend? So to me, it was probably that absence of agenda coupled with the fact that there isn't all that much on the business side of the industry. Fundamentally, here's the way I typically explain it. When you look at cybersecurity, there are 2 ways to look at security. One is to see it as a professional discipline, as a problem area, as a technical discipline. The questions you're asking yourself is, how do I use this technical control? How do I secure my organization? What architectural decisions do I need to make for my organization to be secure, and so on and so forth? And then the other side of the coin is cybersecurity as an area of business. It's the business side of the industry. It's who are the different investors putting their money into the space? What are the different trends shaping the future of the industry? How do different components fit into it? Like, how do investors, channel partners, analyst firms, insurance companies, and all the other players fit into the broader picture. How do they all interact? How do they fight, or how are they in conflict with one another at times? So to me, that business side is much less explored, and it's also much closer to what I'm interested in.
And again, not to make this an agreement show, but I do agree with you that you're writing an authentic content with not a goal in mind to sell something or promote something, and then that created the ability to have a free flow of your ideas and into an intersection between business and tech, and specifically cybersecurity. So almost comes up to mind like this long tail theory where how many people were actually interested in that particular topic, and this is why there was a gap in it, because you're looking at people that are in cyber specifically looking to build something, and not everybody. Some people are in cyber and they're practitioners and they're fine with just using other people's tools, and your content does not resonates with them. And that combination of finding that particular niche and providing that authentic content, that's what kind of created that growth, that explosion in growth. And I beg to differ. I think 10,000, 12,000, I think it's a phenomenal number, just specifically because due to the fact that your content is very specific. So let me ask, go ahead. You have a comment on that?
I'll just say that one of the things that surprised me was how few people in the industry, like how few practitioners as a percentage, are actually interested in the business side of security. I had the initial assumption that, I don't know, every second security practitioner would like to know how the soup is cooked, like how the meal is cooked. Like
Ross, I don't think it's a surprise at all. I think that some of them proud themselves to be in the weeds of the bits and bytes in the areas of like exploitation and defending and the secret sauce behind the scenes. And there's so much associated with that. And it's almost not, I wouldn't say demeaning is the right word, but venturing, they're always like, you can see this with people that are working with these companies. Oh, I'm doing the engineering side. I'm not in sales. Like I only do the engineering piece. Don't talk to me about sales. That's like somebody else. Like, and almost in an apologetic way, they're saying, "Oh, I only do the engineering piece. But you can trust me." And so I don't want to be talking about this stuff is tainted. I don't want to talk about the business side.
Yeah.
Even though they should, and everybody should like at least think about it, because the business side of things, it's the driver of innovation. You need money. Even to develop these tools, you need money. Unfortunately, that's how the world goes.
Yeah, it's the driver, and it's also the enabler. I think it's quite unfortunate that for many people in cybersecurity, the word business is a dirty word. People are looking to avoid it. They will go out and they will build something in open source. They'll do a side project, but they will not want to turn it into a business because business is disgusting. It's all about making money.
But it's not.
It's not. 100%, it is not. But also, more importantly, business is the way you achieve, like you scale your innovation in 2024. If you want, for example, if you believe that you've got an absolutely incredible technical idea that can truly help companies and people to secure themselves, the way for you to get it in front of as many companies and as many people as possible is to build a company, because it enables you to build a product that they can quickly onboard themselves on. It enables you to hire somebody who will be advocating for that solution, call it marketing, call it sales, however you call it. It enables you to hire the best people in the industry to work on your side and get it into the hands of as many customers as possible. So for me, it's just, business is not a dirty word. It's a tool that you can use to scale the impact and to make your vision possible.
I would take it one step further. I would say that it's a matter of national security, because private innovation fueled by capitalism, fueled by the desire to make money, and therefore protecting everyone. This is providing cybersecurity solutions is a huge driver for us being more secure as a nation. So
Absolutely.
we need industry to innovate. A lot of these solutions that private companies are researching and doing all the work and spending the money and efforts in R&D eventually leads itself at some version way or another to some area of DHS, national security, and therefore we need it. This the government cannot potentially spend enough money and resources to develop their own. So we have to have it. There's no two ways about it. It's not just dirty word or dirty thing to make money off cybersecurity. We require it for our well-being and the security of the nation. So we
Yeah.
should collectively hold hands and kumbaya and say, listen, guys and gals, let's get on it. If you have a good idea and you're a practitioner and you come across a product or potential to productize something, go ahead. There's no shame in making money and developing something that you can potentially sell and publish it and getting more users to pay for it.
Yeah. And the good thing is, frankly, that I do think it is happening. There are challenges. There are always challenges in different areas of the industry. There are challenges around getting the people who are being well compensated to take risks and to say, okay, I'm going to take this idea I had in mind and actually work towards implementing it. Because if you are, for example, a security engineer, you are likely in high demand. Your compensation package is impressive enough for you to not want to leave and somehow now make maybe 1/10 or 1/5 at best of what you've been making before and struggle to pay your mortgage as a founder with no certainty around your outcomes. So there are a lot of challenges on that side. There are challenges around evaluating cybersecurity ideas and evaluating new startups. Not every investor, for one reason or another, has any understanding of the cybersecurity market. Not every investor has the right network and the right expertise to be able to evaluate if this amazing, life-changing ABCDEFG cybersecurity tool is a real solution or if it is something.
Is there a feature or is it a platform?
That's another one. But yeah, like you know the problem. Like we need obviously we need more cybersecurity practitioners looking to make their vision a reality and to build something, but we also need investors to invest.
And we have the U.S. is amazing. There's so much money available for you for the right ideas and the right teams. There are people out there with money willing to take the risk, and the environment is such that yes, there are venture capitalists with expertise. There's a lot of people with background and expertise in other companies scaling products, going to market. This is why one of the biggest companies in the world were founded in the Silicon Valley. You know, both from security side and also like just IT in general, like system in general, and so on. But let me ask you the flip side. And Ross, I already see that we're gonna go beyond the time allotted. We're gonna have to do a part B because I haven't even scratched the surface of what I wanted to ask you. I'll be honest with you. But let me play the devil advocate. We have I don't know how many thousands of vendors out there already. We had enough. The industry needs to consolidate and get with the program. There's 50 EDRs. There's 100 XDRs. You mentioned all these acronyms. I can destroy any acronym on the wall, and I've seen some of these maps of where people map like the different logos of all these companies, and it looks like a freaking alphabet spaghetti of like logos. Do we have enough? Doesn't you have enough products? Should we like just do something? Why build more?
It is a great question. And funnily enough, probably about a month ago, I published an article saying why we need more cybersecurity startups and why we need more venture capital in the industry. So I do definitely have a strong opinion around this topic. Here is the way I think about it. First, yes, there are a good number of cybersecurity companies out there. Like, you cannot deny that there's probably, let's just say there is a large number of logos on market maps. That said, if you look at the numbers, how many vendors do we have in security? Say about 4.5, 5,000. Let's just say 5,000. Let's be generous. Let's just say 6,000 if you count all the AI security startups that are now in stealth. So let's just say 6,000. Let's be very optimistic or pessimistic, depending on how you see it. So is 6,000 a lot? It depends, right? When I worked in the financial technology space, I've learned that there are over 30,000 fintech solutions. The same is true for human resources tooling, like for HR tech, over 30,000 tools. If you look at marketing tools, it's again well over 10,000. So my question isn't, I'm not trying to say that like just because we don't yet have 30,000 security tools, like we don't have too many tools, quote unquote. What I'm trying to say is that if security is indeed everyone's problem, wouldn't you think that the market probably isn't as crowded if all we are looking at is the number of vendors in total? I genuinely don't think that. If the whole world is the total addressable market for security, then 6,000 startups, it's not nearly enough. There are other problems, however. The problem, and there are many other problems. One of the challenges is that, yes, the US is an important market, and so is Europe, and so is like Asia, but so is Africa, and so is Latin America. And whenever we talk about cybersecurity, we almost automatically assume that what we mean is the United States. There is a problem
we
there.
are the center of the world, or at least to some.
But not just that, because that's where the companies have the money to spend on security. That's where the level of security maturity is the highest, and so on and so forth. But that creates this mindset, as great as it is for building business, it creates a problem whereby the rest of the globe is living under this so-called cybersecurity poverty line, where
desert.
Exactly.
Cybersecurity desert.
Exactly. So that's one of the problems. The other problem is it's not that we have too many startups. It's that we have too many startups where founders are building technical solutions they are passionate about, instead of going to the market, going to the customers and learning what their problems are and trying to solve those problems.
But isn't it, okay, playing the devil's advocate again, Ford said if you ask people what they wanted back in the day, they wanted faster horses because the customers didn't know what they wanted. Isn't it the case here? Should we go out and ask the customers if maybe they don't know what they don't know? They don't know what to ask for.
See, here is the thing. The customers, again, being in product, I've also got an opinion on this topic. The customer will not know what the ideal solution is.
Ross, that's why you're on the show. You have opinions about everything, and I love it.
No, not everything. Not everything, absolutely. But
everything related to what we're talking about.
Yes, the customer will not know what the ideal solution is, but the customer will know what their problem is. And if they're willing to invest resources into solving that problem, it could be a hair on fire problem where you have to solve it and you have to do it today. Or it could be one of those nice to haves, which you'll probably never get to.
I solved the hero problem years ago for myself. I don't have that issue anymore. And for those who have only listened to this in audio, I have a lack of hair on my head. Let me ask you this. So this is phenomenal. And maybe you're right. Maybe the numbers... sorry, I didn't mean to... Go ahead.
Yeah, so let me just finish this one thought. So we need a large number of security startups. For one, we need to innovate as fast as adversaries. We've got a number of bad guys and girls on the other side spending time and effort into developing solutions to undermine the defensive measures we're building. In order for us to match that energy and those capabilities, we need smart and passionate cybersecurity startup founders. We have to educate the market about the new problem areas. Why do we have, like today we are talking about the MFA, the multi-factor authentication, as if that's what I feel.
But Ross, it costs so, not to cut you off, but I have to tell you, it costs so much money to educate. A lot of people just are not, if they're going to sit down and educate, they're going to be out of business. A lot of people say, listen, we're the .com, we're not the .org. We're not in the education business. In fact, I always tell people that it's better to have multiple companies in the space because you need a village. You need everybody to say the same things because that's what it takes. If you're just one out there and you're like Don Quixote, like just going out there and say how things, you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to educate, but people are going to say, thank you very much for educating me. I really much appreciate it. Well, see you next year. In 2025, we have a plan to deal with that.
Yep, that's exactly it. And frankly, the main reason why we need to have more cybersecurity startups is that is how the knowledge accumulation works. That is how the knowledge refinement works. That is how the knowledge distribution works. It's almost never the case that the company that comes up with a new idea is just perfect at executing on that idea. And now there you go. They're the market leader. You need 10 startups to fail in order for the idea you need 10 startups to go out to the market, spend time and money and effort educating the market about
Ross,
the problem area.
Natural selection in tech?
So there is the part of the natural selection, but there is also the part of this accumulation of knowledge, right? When you start to tackle a problem area, you don't have the answers, but you make some progress. You maybe approach 100 potential customers. You tell them that, hey, MFA is a thing. They'll be like, who cares? Like, what are you talking about? But then eventually, there is that 11th startup that is able to capitalize on all the work that was done before it, that is able to execute well, build an easy-to-navigate product, and then get that idea to the fruition by already leveraging the fact that customers are already somewhat aware of what that company is doing. They've heard of that before. And that's how the knowledge gets accumulated. The only way, I appreciate the idea that we've got too many startups in this category. But the only way an alternative would have been possible would be if the very first company that comes up with a good definition of the problem and builds a product around it becomes a success. But that's almost never the case. Apple was not the first company to conceive iPhones. Google was not the first search engine company. Facebook was not the first social media. Neither was LinkedIn. And we can just go on and on. Apple was not the first computers manufacturer, PC manufacturer. So you have all of those ideas that need to happen. They need to fail. They need to all go, forgive me, to shit in order for somebody else to succeed. There is an amazing,
Ross, we need to crack that code, maybe collectively, you and me, because I don't want to be all the 10 startup that failed. I want to be the startup that succeeds.
There is an amazing movie which I recommend to anybody who is interested in this topic of startups and why we need cybersecurity startups. It's called The General Magic. General Magic. It's about a company that invented iPhone before Apple. And I genuinely recommend that movie because it highlights the importance of having those early adopters, early pioneers to go out, to take risks when they don't have the resources, but all they have is that dream that may not become possible when they're building it, but the dream that is going to fuel the next generation of companies that will be able to accomplish.
Yeah, and they make sacrifices. I think that's true for history in general and tangible things, right? So we are here today with wearing things, doing what we do because a lot of people out there were making the effort, and some of them never actually saw it to come to fruition. It's in the old days, they used to build a church for 300 years. They just put it together, and but the architect designed it, and by the time they finished it, it was already the second and third generation. Ross, listen, we are running out of time, but we have to. I tell you what, we haven't even covered the. We're probably going to be a three-part series. I'm telling you. Before we do this, maybe we'll set up a time for next time, next week, the same time. And until then, I want to make sure that people that are watching this know how to find your book. Maybe they can watch us the second time, and by that time they'll have maybe a copy of your book. Where to find it, how to get a hold of you, who's this book for? Just give me the net.
Yes, so Cyber for Builders, a book about building cybersecurity innovation, building cybersecurity startups. It was written for builders, but I think of builders in a very broad sense. So if you are a startup founder, a security practitioner who is just interested in that side of the house, in the business side of the industry, or who potentially may be thinking about starting something on your own one day, if you're a marketer, an investor, an employee at an early stage startup, a product manager at a large security company. So anybody with an eye for the cybersecurity innovation, get your copy. You can find it on Amazon. It is Cyber for Builders. And otherwise, you can definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm fairly active there. And also, you can check out the blog, ventureinsecurity.net, for that. Yeah. Thanks, David.
Perfect. Yeah. And should they even do it? Some people say, hey, don't even think about it. It's too much. Just don't. Just, it's too much work.
So put it this way. They should definitely get the book because I get paid for it when they get a copy. So that's, at the very least, that is a good reason to get one. But also on a more serious note, I genuinely believe that you cannot innovate in the industry unless you understand the foundations of the whole, like, of the business side of the industry. Unless you understand the mechanics that drive different players in this space, the incentives that shape their behavior, the degree to which they are incentivized or not, and not incentivized to do certain things. So if people are interested in cybersecurity innovation, they have a good reason to get one. If they're not, please don't waste your money. It's $25. No.
Ross, until next time for part B of maybe a three-part series, thank you very much for joining. For all those who joined me today, thank you very much as well. And looking forward to seeing the next episode. And until then, stay safe online as well as offline. And I'll see you soon.